I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all of the difference. There are many secrets and mysteries in this world, strange places and events that call out to us to explore and investigate. These realms of the unknown and the unexplained are waiting for us, just over the horizon and down a dark road. Join your host, Dennis Carroll and Gerald Fountain, as we take the road less traveled. Hello out there in podcast land, ladies and gentlemen. Boys and girls of all ages, gather around. It is time for another trip down the road less traveled. I am your humble host, Dennis Carroll, and our other humble host is now just arriving, Mr. Gerald Fountain.
Good evening.
Hello, sir.
How are you?
All right, we're going to get strange tonight. It's alien night. On the road less traveled. Yeah, absolutely. I like that little picture of that alien standing by the road saying, next stop Earth, And I asked this philosophical question tonight: is Earth a B&B for aliens? Okay, are they having bed and breakfast down here or what? What's going on with that? So we're going to be talking about that tonight. It's a fascinating night. How you been doing there, Gerald? Been busy?
Yeah, I've been busy doing shows and looking stuff up and doing some research. And
oh, good. Well, you're a premier researcher. I know that's that for a fact, definitely. So I'm sure you got some interesting stuff for us tonight. Absolutely. And I want to give a shout out to the people gathering in the grotto here tonight, gathering in the chat room. And that's Blue Eyed Bandit and someone named Shiro. You might recognize that girl.
Yeah, I think it sounds familiar.
You might know that gal. Yeah. And we got Carl and Brooke and Wizard Moon and Jose and let's see who else we got here. We got Mr. Kyle Smith. Honest Content. I like that name. Honest Content. Absolutely. You sound like you might be definitely trustworthy. And there's Monica. Hello, Monica. Good to have you here, dear. Melissa. Oh, Melsina. Maybe that's the way I pronounce that. Okay, I'm sorry. I got to get some new glasses. And we got Brooke. Hello, Brooke. Brooke Michelle. And we got some new people in here tonight. All right.
Yeah.
That's good. And Destiny's Nana's in here, too. I saw her. Well, good. Come on in, gather around. We got some interesting stories and stuff to tell tonight. Aliens, Gerald, are the one of the number one mysteries in the world today. You got to say that about him. I mean, you know, and I was just on a show tonight in the chat room, and something came up about they were talking about aliens, and the thing I was saying is, you know, there's a correlation between alien abduction and fairy abduction. You know, we've talked about that before, Gerald, and that's kind of strange. You know, that this stuff gets transplanted generation by generation, kind of, you know. In one generation it's fairies, another generation is maybe witches, or, and then you got, you know, aliens in this generation and so on. And I think a lot of humanity is seen through the filter of not just folklore, but cultural things that are going on at that time, you know. And you and I, of course, being you know, children of this, along with everybody else, we have been subjected to a lot of science fiction in our lives, in movies, books, you know, the whole works. And I am a big fan of science fiction. I've always been that way. Fantasy and science fiction do it for me. I do like horror too, of course, but you know that. But fantasy and science fiction have always been a big thing with me too, and I have loved all of the science fiction movies. You know, The Day the Earth Stood Still, and you know, Plan 9 from Outer Space. You got to run that again one night, girl. That's a great one. Yeah. Anyway, you stupid Earth people. Okay, I remember that very well. That was a great movie. Anyway, we've all been subjected to that. So that's kind of already implanted in us. You know, that's kind of already there in that respect, you know. And that's fascinating. And sort of like I say, we see these things through that filter, you know. And well, thank you there, Mostina, for that $20 super sticker. Thank you so very much. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
It will help us out with expenses. Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you for the late birthday wishes. Thank you. I'm still getting a bunch of birthday wishes. It's been a long birthday this time. It's been neat though. Absolutely. So thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. And yeah, you know, we're kind of been, implanted with this, don't you think so, Gerald? I mean, we got with Star Trek and Star Wars and all this other stuff, you know, it's become part of us, whether we realize it or not. Just like years ago, fairies were part of people's makeup. They told stories about it around, you know, the fireplace. They told ghost stories and all that. And I've always been a big fan of ghost stories. I am a storyteller. I love stories too. Storytellers not only like to tell stories, they like to hear stories too, you know?
Right.
And that's the fascinating part of all this. So that's just, you know, sort of my introduction to this tonight, folks, is that this is definitely correlated with our history behind us, and it goes into the future before us. Definitely. What will the stories like be in the future about these things, you know? And we see hints of that, though, Gerald, in Hollywood movies and books and all that are coming in and out, and how what direction it's going in, you know? But we still are tied to the original stuff that we did, you know. One of my favorite movies, I don't know about yours, was definitely The Day the Earth Stood Still. That was a great flying saucer and everything in it, you know. That was neat. And another one, of course, was Earth versus the Flying Saucers. You remember that one? That was a great one. So we got that in our history. We got that in our history, no doubt about it. Well, thank you, Michelle. Birthday wishes and alien kisses. All right. Thank you. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. I mean, you know, what do you think, Joe? I mean, do you think that you've got that in your mind? What's your favorite sci-fi movie, by the way?
I don't. As far as movies go, I've always liked King Kong and Godzilla movies. As far as monster movies,
you like the big monsters, huh?
Yeah, but then growing up, you know, I had was able to watch like Fright Night and all kinds of new movies coming out with vampires and stuff that we didn't really necessarily get a lot when I
Gerald,
was younger.
Gerald likes them big monsters. Gerald says if you're going to go big, right? Yeah.
That's right.
Godzilla was always rough, and King. My favorite is King Kong. I always liked him. He was one big monkey, but I liked him. You know, he was neat. I'm gonna tell you something about what I liked about King Kong. He had a good heart. No matter how big and mean he could get, he had a good heart. You know, that was a good thing about King Kong. Godzilla, I don't know. He was all about just stomping stuff mostly. Of course, I think once in a while he tried to do the right thing. I don't know, but anyway. But here, you know, the funny thing, Gerald, and I was showing somebody this the other day. Monsters, we are the monsters. They're a reflection of us. And so are aliens to a certain extent, you know? We've always envisioned them in different ways, like in these movies we're talking about. You know, they come in all kinds of different forms. Look at the ones, you know, from Invaders from Mars. That's another one of my favorites. They were different looking in that and so on. I mean, they reflect what we think. You know, so we humanize everything, girl. You know that. We humanize it all. But what if we were to meet an alien? How much more different would they be from anything we could imagine? Think about that. I mean, that's wild. I mean, could we imagine something like that? I mean, you know, I've seen depictions of science fiction, you know, artwork and stuff of what may be on other planets that are out there, you know, somewhere in the distance. And it's even hard for artists to try to capture that with the imagination. It's maybe beyond, you know, like you hear in the old movies, it's beyond human imagination, you know, and that is definitely what we may be dealing with, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to think that maybe all these Hollywood movies, maybe they knew something we didn't. Maybe they know that these aliens and monsters really exist, so they make movies about them.
Well, here, let me throw something at you here, okay? I got something good. What do you think about here? What if alien consciousness has already invaded this world and it is invading the minds of human beings? What if they have guided our imagery and what they want us to think aliens look like? What do you think about that hypothesis, Drew?
Maybe. I mean, they always talk about how maybe some other entity is throwing a projection out into your mind and making you think that you're seeing all these creatures out in the forest or wherever. So are they really real? Have you touched them? Have you felt them? Have you interacted with them? Are they real creatures, or is it something that's being implanted in your mind like you're talking about?
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, over the years, there have been many people who have claimed to embrace this alien consciousness. Now, by that, folks, I mean it is sort of an intelligence that's out there, kind of like the Force in Star Wars. You know, it is out there, you know, and of course, now the Force was sort of God's answer to Star Wars. Though, I mean, yeah, the Star Wars, they kind of looked upon that as sort of like the Force of God in that way. And, you know, there have been religions that have grown up around that, Jedi Knights and all that stuff, you know. That's true. That's real stuff. You know, I have actually seen photographs of forms that people fill out. It says your religion on there. They put Jedi Knight or something. And that's interesting. And that's another part of us consciousness. What if though, and that, you know, I was thinking about this the other day. What if we have already been invaded by aliens only just with the consciousness thing? And they haven't actually physically landed here yet, but they have gotten into our consciousness. You know, there are theories that all of humanity shares a consciousness, okay? And would that not be the perfect place to begin your true invasion? Think about it, you know, if that's true.
Maybe
that's scary.
Maybe aliens control Google search and AI and GTP chat.
Well, there you go. That would be, if I were an alien and I was going to take over, that's exactly where I'd start. I mean, that's the way I'd begin. I wouldn't have to worry about you shooting at me with a gun or a missile. I just start in that way. That makes sense when you think about it. And I've often talked through the years, and I'm just going to hit on this a moment. I think you agree. You and I both agree on this. The perfect way for absolute space travel is not extraterrestrial, but interdimensional. That's the way you would travel, okay? Now, here's another thing. Think about this. What if they're shooting their consciousness interdimensionally, transporting it from place to place, and not actually there physically? You see what I'm saying?
Right.
But sort of almost like spiritually there. You know what I mean? And that's the weird part. And, I've often hypothesized this, that, spiritual part of the world, and you and I know that it does exist, the unseen aspects of this universe. And I think without a doubt, it is removed from us in another dimension. I think the spiritual is a dimension. Like other dimensions, there may be definitely more than other one dimensions out there, but I'm just saying that could possibly be one dimension.
Right.
And in order for you to truly be a sentient spiritual being, you would have to have a consciousness, definitely. That's the way to look at it. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we always talk about that, whether somebody has a conscious or a soul, whether if you're a clone or if you're somebody made up in a lab. Do you have a soul? Do you have a conscience? I mean, are you controlled by the maker, basically, in the lab, the scientist, or will you become a spiritual person like everybody else?
Well, and you've heard me make the statement, and I've said it a lot of times over the years, that there are things out there walking around that aren't human, okay, on our planet right now. What if some of them have been implanted with alien consciousness? They're actually still human, but they're not human anymore. They really got an alien consciousness in them. Think about that. So what are we talking about here? Alien zombies or drones? Drones can be biological too, folks. Get the girl?
Yep.
Yeah. What if that's what we're dealing with here? That's a freaky thing to think about. And let's go one step further with that. Think about this a moment. If they can invade your consciousness, then they can also change your perception of what? Reality.
Absolutely.
They could get you to see what they really wanted you to see. So would that not be the perfect way to shapeshift?
Right. I mean, they could literally. My view right now is me sitting in front of my computer in one of my rooms in my house. But what if I'm not really here? What if this is just some kind of figment that's been implanted? I don't really know.
They got you believing what you're seeing, and it ain't there. That's what.
Yeah.
And we've talked about that with other beings like vampires and stuff that have illusional capabilities, illusional glamour, we call it. What if the aliens can do that too? I mean, what if this is part of the repertoire that these beings can use, especially if they're spiritual beings they can use this on you? How do you know where the heck you at then? What are you doing? It's a possibility. And here's one more thing. If I were, let's say, a reptilian, and that's one of my most interesting type of aliens, okay? If I were a reptilian and I didn't want you to see me as a reptilian, girl, all I got to do then is change your perception of reality. I'm still a reptile, but you don't see me that way.
Right. My best reference from that is like the Marvel movies when you have Wanda who can change perception and everything that you see. And Doctor Strange comes in and they're in this nice apple orchard. Everything's beautiful, sunlight and butterflies. And then when he questions her about it, she puts it all down as nothing but wilted trees and rotten fruit and wasteland everywhere you can see, because she was projecting that image to him.
Well, I always liked Dr. Strange. He'd be fun to hang out with. But definitely, and I like Wanda too. She was nice. Anyway, Yeah, it's interesting to think about. What if some of this stuff is really going on? This would be a perfect way to explain things to a certain extent that are going on. And so and I'm going another step further here, okay? So if I can do this to your mind and I can change your perception of reality, then I could get you to see me also in different forms. I could look like an insectoid, maybe, or a Lyrian, or a one of my favorite, the Pleiades, the people from the Pleiades. I always like to be. That's my favorite constellation, by the way, the Seven Sisters. I love that. And let me tell you something about the Seven Sisters, there, Gerald. You probably know this. You've been interested in astronomy like me. Did you know the only night the Pleiades stand directly overhead is at midnight on Halloween?
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah. And so they say that the Pleiades, the Seven Sisters, were witches, okay, according to the legend. That's interesting. Tie in with it on Halloween, of course. But anyway, that's my favorite constellation. And I definitely like the aliens that's supposed to come from there. They look like, tall, Nordic looking people with blonde hair. And they say they're very angelic looking in some aspect. And they're another one of my favorite aliens. I got some favorite aliens, folks. Okay, and that's definitely one of them. And and somebody might want to ask me, why are they your favorite aliens? Because they got some good-looking women. Okay, definitely. They got some good-looking women. Well, they look better than the insectoids in my book. Okay. Anyway, that's one interesting thing about it. But anyway, what if that, could be part of the repertoire too? They could get you to see them any way they want to. So maybe some of these aliens we're going to talk about tonight are just sort of programs, things that they want us to see, and we're not actually really seeing them the way they really look. That's you run into stuff like this, folks, when you run into alien territory, right, Drew?
Yep, that's right. I mean, you never know what you're going to find. I mean, there's so many reports of different types of aliens that people see, and I have a few of them tonight we're going to talk about later on. But they're all different. They're all described differently. I mean, it's from animals to humanoid looking things to birds, aviary.
Oh yeah, and you got cats. You got I think you
You got the
even got
feline.
dog-headed type aliens, canine aliens. You got different things. But it's interesting to know, and that's why I brought this up. That if they are getting to see, maybe these don't exist. Maybe they're product of the reality they're creating for us. That's just my little theory there, folks. Anyway, what if that would explain why there's so many different types? I've had a lot of people ask me this, Gerald. I want to get your take on it. Okay. Why are we being visited by so many different aliens? Why are we a star? Are we, like I said at the beginning, a B&B here or what? I don't see us being one big experiment. What's going on with that? So maybe this is one way to explain all the different ships and the different aliens that people claim to see. Maybe we're being made to see that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how to answer that. I mean, we could be an experiment. There's people that say the Anunnaki developed the human race and put us here. Maybe we're just lucky enough to be on a planet that has so many resources that they have to come here to get them, whether it's gold, crystals, you name it. Maybe we have it and they need it on their planet, or they need it to survive.
It might tie into that, that point I made, I think, last show we did about, only 10% of the gold on this planet has ever been mined or found. There's a lot of gold left there, folks. Well, why aren't the Anunnaki coming by to get the rest of it? What happened with that? That's a big question. But when you look at that, Gerald, tons of different indigenous people have that legend of the sky people that came and visited them and all that.
Right.
It's not just the Anunnaki, which is a Sumerian legend, which is not even as old as Mesopotamia, I don't think, or some of the other different cultures. This is found worldwide in many different folklore and stuff that's out there. The star people or the sky people. And sometimes they're also said there's the water people, the people that come out of the ocean.
Yeah.
That's another place. Yeah, you heard a lot about that too. So this ties in directly to a lot of culture and folklore all worldwide. But other things do that too. You've heard me talk about the very famous list. My list that I had years ago. You got giants, you got witches, you got vampires, you got shapeshifters everywhere in the world, folks. And people keep asking that question. Why is that? Because maybe once upon a time somebody met one of them. That's the way that goes. And here's another thing. Here's a weird thing. I'm gonna throw this at you, girl. Okay, my mind's going fast tonight, so let me get in on this. There are many legends right here on this continent. Okay, and let me tell you this: it's not legends, right? I mean, there's actual fact to this. That when the European people got here, the indigenous people said, "Oh, are you back?" That's
Right.
what they said. They said, wait a minute, we got legends about you guys, blue eyes and all that stuff,
Yep.
all the way from Plymouth, Massachusetts, all the way across the country to the shores of California. This is found in indigenous tribes history. White people with blue eyes.
Yep.
So they weren't surprised when they met us. They said, "Oh, you guys back? We got stories about you." And that's what struck me as strange when I first heard that. I said, "Oh, wait a minute here. What is going on here?" Because it could not have been Vikings all the way to California. You know what I'm saying? It could not have been. And there's like stories of maybe even the Romans showing up here. And you and I always discussed the fact the Egyptians could have been here as well. But they
Right.
don't have that many stories about Egyptians. They got more stories of these white people with blue eyes. And guess what? Most of the stories, they're good guys in the stories. They're here to help the indigenous tribe doing something. And that's why, it's another reason I'm going to bring this up, folks. That's why they trusted us, unfortunately. They trusted us a little bit too much when they met us because they thought we were what? The good guys.
Yep.
Because we saved them one time before. They thought we were back to do it again. Where's this coming from, Gerald?
Yeah. So is it the Palladians? Did the Palladians come and visit them? Did the Nordics come and visit them? I mean, they both have blonde or silver hair and blue, dark or real sparkling blue eyes.
Well, 9 out of 10 times when you find out this legend, and folks need to do some research on this. Gerald, I'm sure you've done research on this. Fascinating stuff. 9 times out of 10, they call them the sky people. They came from either the ocean or the sky. In other words, they come up, they come ashore on the ocean. But most of the time, it's all about them coming from the sky. That's wild.
Yep.
So let me tell you one more thing, okay? This blue eye thing, okay? And I'm not getting racial here, folks, but blue eye people ain't been around that long. They only been here about what, Gerald? About 10,000 years, something like that.
Right.
Before then, everybody had brown or black eyes, okay? That was it. Where did that come from, Gerald? They say it was a mutation, but come on, do you believe that?
I don't know. I was born with blue eyes and blonde hair. And as I got older, it started to change more to a hazel. So somehow I got kind of a gold and a green mixture going on with them. And I think they're starting to turn more blue as I get older even now. So I think I went through a little metamorphosis. I don't know what's going on.
I'll tell you something, Gerald. It's very strange when I think about that, that either this was genetic engineering of some sort, or it was some kind of hybridization of some sort. Something like that is going on with this. Because where did that just come out of nowhere? You know what I'm saying? And the science wants us to believe that. Oh, it just come out of nowhere. It's a mutation. Everything has a beginning. Somebody somewhere had the original blue eyes, okay? Where did that come from, could have been some of the star people, because that's what the indigenous people, I mean, they even talk about these people in Hawaii and in the Polynesian legends, okay? In my book, the Pleiadians could be the prime suspects in this, okay? Definitely. That's wild. The spectrum of the sun has changed. Well, yeah, but I think what Gerald was talking about, with the cold flecks and the different things, that's product. It is the assimilation of the blue color into the brown, the black color that you see. And you get deviations of it. I think that's what's going on. Don't you too, Joe?
I don't know. All I know is I was born with bright blue eyes and blonde hair. Then by the time somewhere in grade school, it started changing more towards the hazel. And now that I notice my eyes, I think they're starting to go more back to blue.
You know that when you're blue-eyed and you die, your eyes turn black. Do you know that, Joe?
Yep, I've heard that.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a certain amount of melanin in the eyes goes out when you die. It's got something to do with the blood in your eye, But that's true. I have known that to be true because I have hung around the morgue, folks, okay, a while. I can tell you that is real. That does happen. But anyway, I'm looking at some of the comments. But anyway, it's fascinating. So it's just fun to speculate on this, though. I mean, that's what it is, speculation. We got no absolute proof on any of this, but it's speculation. It's very interesting. But getting back to the alien consciousness, okay, and you got a lot of people today believing in star seeds and stuff like that, and it has become almost a religion to some people, a religious context type thing, and they believe that they have maybe the incarnation or reincarnation of alien consciousness from somewhere out there that has been incarnated into a human body, and they have certain memories and memory patterns with this and all that stuff. I'm just laying it out for you. But anyway, that's what they believe, and that's why they call themselves star seeds. They're seeded from the stars. They're seeded from this alien consciousness. Okay, and a lot of people believe that this is also tied into what we mentioned earlier in the program about that alien consciousness being able to be transported from place to place. That would be the perfect way to transport something. If you think about it, transport your consciousness, not having to worry about your body. You know what I'm saying? So what if somebody, somewhere else says they've got Gerald in a bottle over here, and we'll go ahead and send him somewhere else, or whatever. We got his consciousness here, Well, think about this now, and this is a wild thing. And, we've done programs on vampires and all that before. If something like that could be downloaded into you, into a human body, let's say at birth or right before birth or whatever, if it could be downloaded in there, are you not sort of a symbiotic type thing? Are you not sort of put it this way, you're not sort of a visitor in that body in a way, kind of like a vampire spirit inhabits the dead body, and brings it to life, supposedly. You've heard me talk about demonic reanimation of the dead type of stuff going on, necromancy and all that stuff aside. That is kind of a form of an alien consciousness actually entering a body like that. And you are sort of taking that, but it's sort of like demonic possession, is it not? In a certain sense. If you want to look at it that way. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying it looks kind of like, it has similar qualities to it. Anyway, if that happens, are you still human or are you now that alien? That's the interesting part of it. And what happened to if you do that, does it happen at that moment of conception and not at birth? What happens to the original soul? Or did it not have a soul until the consciousness got downloaded?
Right.
So what we're talking about here, Dan, could that be possibly a human soul that we're basically talking about? Not just the consciousness of it, but the soul itself. So this goes back to belief some people believe that somewhere out there amongst the stars is a great reservoir of souls. And God or whatever eventually one day decides to send one of those souls somewhere to inhabit a body. You get my drift on that, Drew?
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of right along the lines of the walk-ins and being demon possessed. What happens to the human soul? Is it just suppressed and somebody's controlling us now? Then when we get rid of them, we're back to where we were.
Mm-hmm. So, could this explain some mental illness that's out there of people who have different personalities? They're split in different personalities. There's 2 or 3 people living in the same person. Could that not be some kind of aberration of this soul being downloaded into them, and they got more than one soul? We got more than one consciousness. Could that happen too? Just like twins happen in the womb, and triplets do too, by the way. Triplets and quadruplets and all that, They're really the same person divided 3 or 4 different kind of ways. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's the tie. And I have known twins, folks, who have psychic ties with each other, okay? Because they are basically, I'm not saying they share in the same consciousness, because they're 2 different people, but yet they're still connected in a weird way, because they were once upon a time one being, okay, in the womb, okay. That's wild, crazy stuff to think about. But
right.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. So, but we'll move on from that, because there's a lot of different connections you can make with that. But it's going away from our main subject tonight, the alien species themselves. But that's it. That's interesting to think about, But I still stand by my hypothesis. If I were going to invade, that's the perfect way I would do my invasion. Absolutely. But anyway, I'm sure Gerald's got some pictures for us to show us some of the different species. But this is fascinating stuff, because people have reported so many times. And you know me, I've been deep into UFOlogy for decades now. It's fascinating stuff, the abductions and all. And really, I like to kind of, Gerald, and I don't know if you agree with this or not, but I kind of like to, although they're connected, I kind of like to keep them separate. I like to cut alien encounters separate from the alien abduction type stuff.
Right.
Because they're kind of going 2 different ways, and yet they're still connected. I understand that, but we're not talking about abduction too much tonight in that fact, because that is really weird stuff. When you get into that, you go way out there with that. Okay, but and like I said on that show tonight, earlier this evening, there is a weird connection between that and fairy abductions and other kind of abductions. And look at the stories of people being abducted by dragons and people being abducted by giants and so on and so on. You goes back through time with that stuff. We're not going to get into that now. That'd be another story. That'd be a good show one night, definitely by itself, Gerald. The abduction stuff. But anyway, let's talk about the encounters. That's what we want to get to. The different alien encounters. Okay. And I have, that's now, which one is this one?
This could either be a Nordic or a Palladian, depending on how you look at it. I mean, this is obviously AI generated, so I'm not really sure. I just thought it was a good picture to bring up.
Oh yeah, I see the eyes there. That's the Pleiades, Palladians.
So we'd already talked about them, but I just thought I have like 5 or 6 different groups that I brought up just for tonight. So,
okay, this is the Nordic ones we were talking about. The Nordic looking ones with the blue eyes and the blonde hair. These are the ones I was referring to, basically, when we talked about it now. Also, the indigenous tribes talk about this one, too. The reptilians. That's a great picture. You have to send that to me, Drew. I'd like to have that one.
All right.
That's a good picture.
They look about like a lot of accounts. A lot of accounts, even for cryptids, where people say, we have these creatures that come out of the rivers or the lakes or even the swamps that kind of look like this.
Oh yeah, like the Swamp Man of South Carolina, the Swamp Lizard Man of South Carolina,
Yeah.
which I have to track on occasion. I still have to find that guy. I want to see if he really looks like that. But anyway, um, you also have I know you're familiar with that too, Gerald. The Frogman of Loveland.
Right.
Yeah, another reptilian type looking thing. I would say that's very close to their depiction. Absolutely. Oh yeah, now that's the gray, right?
I think
Sometimes called gray.
this one I think would be like a tall gray, even though there's other types of grays. There's the short grays or the small grays, and I mean, it seems like each one of these alien races have different variations on them, so they're not quite all the same. It's just kind of like Sasquatch and Bigfoot. You know, how many different ones are there really? Are they the same creature, or they're different, just different variations of them?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's almost like perception again of reality. But these guys are mostly, when people talk about these, you got two basic categories. You got the tall and the short. The different descriptions are somewhat different. Not they're very similar though. The makeup of them, the eyes, the head, the small nose, the mouth,
Yep.
and all that stuff. That stays along pretty much as the same description on some of them. A lot of those, the ones that, and then, I mentioned the abductions earlier. The ones that are talked about in the abductions on the ships are usually tall. You notice that, Drew?
Yeah, seems to be that way.
Yeah. Yes, the indigenous do talk of the insectoid types. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You definitely have that mentioned. Oh, this is the goblin, right?
Yeah, this is like a goblin. Can be like a hairless cat with the ears also. So I mean, it could be a feline being or it could be a goblin. I'm not really sure what they were depicting.
Well, that's very similar to the description of the Hopkinsville goblins that they supposedly encountered. You remember they attacked that
Yep.
family in the farmhouse? Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I
very
got
much.
I got that story loaded up here in just a little bit, and we'll talk about it also. So yeah, it could fit that description.
Mm-hmm. It kind of looks like. It kind of looks like. What's that one? The name from Harry Potter, the elf in Harry Potter.
Oh
He looks
yeah.
a little like it. Yeah.
Yeah, so it makes you, like we talked about earlier, it makes you wonder if they base some of these characters off of what they know of aliens or been told long ago.
Dobie was his name. I couldn't think of it.
Oh,
Dobie
Dobie,
the
yeah.
house elf. Yeah.
Yeah, Dobie's a little bit different than this guy, but pretty
Looks
close.
a little bit like Yoda too. A little bit like Yoda.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can just make little changes here and there, and you could have one over the other.
Yep.
And this is supposed to be like a bird alien.
The avian aliens. Yeah. That was like a chicken to me. I don't know about you. It was like an alien chicken.
Yeah, it's got some pretty
I don't know if
human-like hands there, though.
I don't know if I'd want to invite him to Sunday dinner. How about you, Drew?
No, definitely wouldn't want to have fried chicken on the plate.
Yeah, there you go.
Might cause a little problem during dinner.
He might get very offended. He looks like a hawk. A little bit like a hawk to me. More
Does
like
look
a
like a
hawk.
hawk. Anyway, I just had a couple of those pictures, just kind of the different races, just since we're talking about it, and I mean, there's many more.
Well, those are some of the main ones, and of course they're the cat ones, the Lyrians, and then you have the canine-looking ones as well. And they are beautiful. Look, those Lyrians are beautiful. They look like lions and tigers, only they have a humanoid look to them. They are beautiful to see, definitely. I don't know though. They might eat you up if you met them. They
Oh,
might be like a regular tiger out of the woods to get you. But if they were hungry or you caught them on a bad day, definitely.
right.
You might have a problem. But the interesting thing about all this, Gerald, to me, is that, like I said, we talked about earlier, the different varieties and different types of these things, and the encounters that people supposedly have had with them. Now, let's just take, for instance, that one that looks like a hawk or a chicken, whichever persuasion you want to go with on that. It also has reptilian features as well, and we do know reptilians supposedly are kin to birds, chickens, and stuff like that. We've heard science talk about that, and
Yeah.
so that would kind of go along with that picture a little bit. These are depictions, right, Gerald, of things that people have reported,
Yeah,
and
these
of
these
close
were
encounters.
basically AI created pictures of how they describe aliens when people either encountered them or speak of them.
Hmm. That's true. But that it definitely, when you look at something like that, and I'm just going to throw this at you, Gerald, since we're talking about it. It's alien night, so we can get into this. Um, what kind of evolution would spawn something like this? I mean, that's something you got to think about, because most of these, except for the insectoid looking ones, look more like warm-blooded creatures, or maybe are kin to something like that, except for maybe the reptilians, and I'll leave them out of that. But you got to wonder what kind of evolutionary process would have spawned things like this, and what type of a planet would have. So when you see something like this, to me, that's the scientific inquiry behind it. Where did they come from? What would their origin be? Just
Right.
like that avian looking alien, would he be like hatched from an egg, or what? Um, you got to wonder. And if their evolution is that close to ours, in certain instances, you got to say, well, maybe the planet they're from is very close to ours as well in that way. You know what I'm saying? So even if you visited their planet, things might not be that strange looking to you. A certain perspective on that. What do you think, Drew?
Yeah, I mean, it's everybody's perception is what anybody ever talks about. So something I see might not be exactly the same thing that you see, even though we're standing side by side. Everybody has a different focus. I might notice the color or the texture of its hair. You might notice its face or its color of its eyes. I mean, it just depends on how attentive you are and if you really can take a true picture of it in your mind and be able to recall everything. But usually it happens so fast and you're so shocked and you're in awe sometimes that you like lose all the little details. You just know it's a monster. You know it's bigger than I am, 8 foot tall, maybe whatever.
Well, definitely, an alien would fit my idea of a monster sometimes. It might not look something like the bird thing that you can equate to. We know what birds are. We know what tigers and lions look like. And we do know what the Nordic looking people look like, and so on and so on. We know what reptiles look like. But what if we run into something we didn't know exactly at all what it was? You know what
Right.
I'm saying? I like the blob. You remember the blob? Yeah.
Yeah.
What if we run into something like that? That would be a true alien thing too. And yes, freedom lover. A lot of these reports have not been good. There have been negative encounters, but some of them have been positive encounters too.
Yeah. I mean, we have stories all the time of people getting lost, and they say this like a little boy or something. They say this nice hairy thing kept me warm during the winter, in this cave, and then brought me back somewhere where I could be found. I mean, there's all kinds of story of Bigfoot or Sasquatch doing that.
Hmm.
Then there's stories of Bigfoot and Sasquatch terrorizing.
But I've thrown the theory out there before that what if Sasquatch or maybe even Dogman were things that were implanted here by alien species, sort of as probes, or as doing who knows what for them. That's a possibility too. That when you see something like that, you still, and just like with the demonic I've talked about for so many years, that card is on the table. It's always there, and you can't ignore it in certain circumstances like this. So is the alien card. Okay, the alien card's got to be there and recognized too, because some of this stuff could have an alien connection behind it,
Right.
and you never know. Yeah, you never know, Joe.
Absolutely.
Wizard Moon says she likes to eat. Says she likes to eat chicken. I do too, and watermelon. I'm Southern. What can I tell you? Anyway, yep. But anyway, podcast hopping tonight. Okay, Jason Finch. Good and good. That's just a good hobby. Yeah, don't hop too much now. You might throw something out. And but for beef, I had to help Granny kill the chickens. Oh God, that would ruin your appetite, definitely. Absolutely. I asked my grandpa that one time years ago. How do you kill the chickens? I said it was really easy. Just, I said, okay, never mind. Never mind. Too descriptive. Okay, but anyway, uh, yeah. There's been a lot of positive and not so positive encounters supposedly with these things. And of course, like we're not going to be going into abduction thing, but a lot of abduction stuff leads into this as well. But some people have just reported, Gerald, just walking up on these things in the woods or down a dark alley one night or something. They actually encountered these things, and very recently they had something along those lines in Las Vegas with that incident of what happened supposedly in the backyard, which they now say was demons. I don't know, but you remember that, and
Right.
I think Jessica and I did a show on that, and you never know when you might run into something like this, and I've heard a lot of stories from my friend Bigfoot Dwarf in Los Angeles, of these things coming out of sewers and stuff, and water mains and stuff being reptilian looking things. Who knows? What if there's some kind of base under there, under Los Angeles or something? Maybe they've got a secret base. Who knows? And we've all heard the stories, Gerald, of the cooperation that's supposed to be going on between the secret space force and a lot of stuff in these underground bases with aliens, and they, in Dulce, New Mexico, and places like that. Um, they even suppose they had a war with them one time. They had a
Right.
falling out with them. That's a very famous story, very well known, supposedly pretty famous. Anyway, what if some of this other stuff, of course, Eisenhower supposedly made it, or some of his people made a deal with these aliens and all that. That's part of the history, supposedly, as well. By the way, that's another thing I would love to talk with his granddaughter, Laura, about. I'd like to get her on the show one night, definitely. But I've tried to contact her, but I'm still waiting on a reply. Or maybe she'll see this show tonight. But anyway, I would definitely like to talk about that because there's a lot of history here, and I call this the UFO history, okay? Because it goes way back. I think we're coming up on the 75th year of Roswell or something like that. Can't believe
Oh,
it's
is
been
it?
that long almost.
I don't know.
Yeah, but anyway, and there's a lot of history to this. But yeah, there's been a lot of encounters supposedly with aliens, and I'm gonna mention one of my favorites, Gerald. I don't believe you got a picture of him, okay? But does the name Indrid Cold ring a bell for you?
No, not right offhand.
Indrid Cold is mentioned. You need to watch the Mothman Prophecies. Great movie, by the way. And if any of you out there have never seen it, you need to get this on your channel too. By the way, girl. Okay. Great movie, The Mothman Prophecies. It will make. I lived the Mothman Prophecies for a while one time. Okay. So that's my tie in with this. But anyway, Indrid Cold was an alien that looked like us, but he could do things that we can't do. Okay.
Oh,
And he actually met what's his name? Durrell something. I cannot think of his last name. And all this took place, and I've been there to physically investigate this area. Yes, I went to where Indrid Cole supposedly showed up at in West Virginia. Okay, with the Mothman incident. Indrid Cole was tied into that, but he also showed up in different other cases supposedly as well.
oh,
Indrid
wow.
Cole looked like us, but he grins, he smiles a lot. He's got this very Joker-like smile about him. They call him the Grinning Man. And he does not talk with his mouth. He telepathically talks to you.
Oh.
And I cannot think of the guy's name. Anyway, his name was Durrell. He actually ran into and Indrid Cole in the movie, The Mothman Prophecies. Richard Gere, who plays the lead character in it, gets on the phone with Indrid Cole. And Indrid Cole, he says, prove to me that you're an alien. Prove to me that you're real. And he says, open the bottom drawer of your bedside table there, and there's a book. There's a phone book or something in it. And there's and so anyway, somehow or another, I think something like that, phone book or something. Anyway, he proves that that he knows what he's looking at without him being able to see it because it's, not nowhere around. He proves to him he can see it. There's your alien consciousness, folks. Okay. Anyway, that's wild. You need to watch this movie, folks. You got to see The Mothman Prophecies. Richard Gere. Great movie. Great book. Actually, of course, the book was written by someone very famous. John Keel, one of my favorite authors, John Keel, wrote this. And this was his experience with this stuff. Okay, it's a true story, not made up. But anyway, Indrid Cole is one of my favorite aliens. He's a weird and wild guy. Absolutely.
Wow.
But he's supposed to be able to see things. And here's the explanation they give him in this movie, Gerald. They're talking about this alien consciousness type thing, okay? And he's talking about Indrid Cole. Said, how could he see things and know things that I didn't even know and see? And so this is what the guy explains to him about him. Great actor. I can't think of his name. We talked about him the other night. He's in that Autopsy of Jane Doe. What's his name? I know his name. Great actor. Has a beard, I can't think of it.
Right.
Anyway, you know who I'm talking about. Anyway, he explains to John Keel. He's not John Keel in the movie. He's got another name, but it's him. Okay. He explains John Keel said, it's just like you being on the street, looking down the street, you can only see so far. But if I'm in the building on that street, 10 stories up, I can see further than you can down that street.
Oh, wow.
So it's great. You need to watch the movie, folks. Great movie. I highly recommend it. The Mothman Prophecies. Anyway, you talk about some freaky stuff. John Keel ran into some. That man lived quite a life. Absolutely. But anyway, I recommend another one of his books too, by the way, Gerald. Jadoo. He actually is a young man. He led a life like Indiana Jones would have been proud of. Okay.
Really?
Yeah, he went to India and got in. He actually saw a lot of the real true fakers over there and all that stuff, and wrote a book about it. It's called Jadoo. Jadoo is a Hindu word for magic. Okay. Great book. If you ever get his copy of it, great book. Anyway, and he also got on the trail of the Yeti while he was there. Y'all need to read that book. It's a great book. But that's my favorite, Indrid Cole. That guy was wild, whoever or whatever he was. Who knows? But he popped up in several different things connected to the Mothman. And that's another alien there for you, Gerald, the Mothman.
Yeah. We've seen him here in Chicago even.
Mm-hmm. Yep. He gets around. He's been sighted in Georgia, too, by the way.
Oh.
We might better call up Jessica and tell her to watch out. Anyway, definitely, and of course, the Mothman is supposed to be a harbinger of doom, folks. You might not want to see him, definitely, when he shows up. He might not be good. But, of course, you got the prototypical, and I'm going to let you take over with this one, Gerald. The prototypical little green man, okay? Who is that? The Hopkinsville Goblin, right, Gerald? You want to tell everybody about that?
I think I have I think I included that in a slide. Let me look.
It's one of my favorite aliens. It happened the year I was born, by the way. That's why I like it. Yes, folks, I could have been kidnapped by the Hopkinsville goblins.
I don't know if I have it. I thought I did.
Well, you show that one again. It looks like Dobie because that's pretty close to what they supposedly look like. But
Yeah,
you can
I do
tell them
have.
the story. Go ahead and tell them the story about it. It's fascinating stuff.
Yeah, I don't really know the story that well, Dennis. So if you want to tell it, go ahead.
Well, it's just about these people saw some strange lights. They were a farm family, okay? And I think they like maybe had a couple of cousins staying with them that night. And this all happened in Kentucky, folks, okay? Hopkins, right outside of Hopkinsville, Kentucky, in the year 1955. And the summer of 55. And they saw some lights in the woods that night. And they didn't know if it was maybe somebody jacklighting or what. And you know what jacklighting is, going out and hunting for deer, illegally hunting for deer with flashlights. They thought somebody might have been jacklocking that night, you know, out there. But they saw all these weird lights out in the woods, and the dogs were barking really strangely. They didn't know if it was like maybe a bear out there messing around or whatever was going on. And later on that evening, when the sun finally went, you know, when the got real dark. This all happened around twilight, but then it got real dark. And the boy, one of the young boys in the family, went out to the well to get a pail of water, which most of the farm families did back in the old days. You had a well, you know. And he went out there to retrieve a pail of water or whatever. And he supposedly saw one of these things, like Gerald put up, very close to that description. And it was probably about 2 or 3 feet in height. And it was jumping and hopping around, moving very strangely. And you know, after having read the description years ago, it kind of dawned on me one time, Gerald, that he was talking about this thing not just hopping like a kangaroo, but moving static, what we call statically. In other words, almost like interdimensionally. You know, you'd be here in 1 second and then somewhere closer another second, somewhere over here and so on.
Right.
We call that static movement, you know. And, you know, pale crawlers have been described as doing that as well, Gerald. You know, we've talked about that before. Anyway, this thing, that's the kind of the description I get out of that. Although they never did bring that up because they didn't know back in 1955 exactly what that was. You know, they wouldn't, that was not in the consciousness of those people. Okay. But looking back on it from our time, you can say, hey, maybe that's what he was talking about. This thing was moving statically. And then he kind of come to find out it wasn't just one of them. There was like 3 or 4 of these things moving around his yard. And he scared him. He dropped the water and he went back in the house and said, hey, there's some kind of monster out there. You know, there's something out there. So they all went to the window and they were looking out, you know. And being farm boys, of course, they got their guns. And some of them went out on the porch. And about the time they went out on the porch, one of these things come off the roof of the porch down in front of them and kind of floated in front of them like.
Wow.
And they shot at it. And they hit it and knocked it out in the yard and got back up and floated off.
Yeah.
And this, I'm not going to tell you all that happened. They shot one in a window. One of them was looking in a window. This stuff continued all night long, almost. And towards dawn, they didn't see them as much. They were all over the place. They said it must have been about a dozen of these things, supposedly.
Wow.
Out in the bar and all the different places. And they never actually got in the house. Okay. They came very close to it. But towards dawn, things kind of settled down. That's when the father said, let's make it out of here. And we're heading for the sheriff. We're going to the sheriff, you know, while we got a chance. So they all piled in the car. I think it was about like 8 of them all together. Okay.
Oh my.
And I think it was a big old farm truck or whatever they had. They all jumped in it and took off. Said these things were following them down the road. And like I said, there again, they were moving like they said statically. In other words, it could be here and all of a sudden be on the side of the road. It was moving this way on them. It scared them to death because they had never seen anything like this, supposedly. And so they got to the sheriff and reported all this, folks. And the sheriff said, well, I know y'all so very upset about something. I'm going to go check this out. And the sheriff went there and looked around. Of course, by this time it was daylight and there was nothing around. They were gone. The sheriff did supposedly say he found some weird looking tracks, but he didn't know what they were and he didn't, look that deep into it. But he said, I know these people. This is what the sheriff said. I know these people. They're hardworking people. They don't drink and they don't do that stuff. They wouldn't have went out on something like this. They wouldn't be making up something like this. They were genuinely scared. They were scared to death. The women were really scared, okay, because they seen some of these things, looking in the window at them. He said, I believe them. I don't know what it was. I'm not going to say what it was. I don't know. But I believe them, But now the description of what Gerald showed you, that was very close to that. They had big ears, but they had a green color to them, supposedly. Wow. And that's where you get the very famous little green man to that, from outer space. The little green man from outer space came from the Hopkinsville incident. Some of the news reporters wrote that up. Little green man from space attacked farm family, And that's where that come from. But to this day, it still remains a mystery. What did those people see that night? But here's one more little antidote for that. For several nights after this incident, they still saw some lights out in those trees, and the dogs still barked, but they didn't see any more goblins.
Wow.
Wild story. And one thing that stood out to me when I heard that, Gerald, they had all the opportunity they wanted to come in the house. Why didn't they? Maybe they weren't invited in.
Oh.
Maybe they had to be invited in.
Yeah, like black-eyed children.
Mm-hmm. By the way, these things are described as having black eyes. I'm glad you brought that up. They did have black eyes, so like the Greys supposedly do.
Wow.
But there were several incidents during this time. They actually hit these things with the 12-gauge shotgun shells. I mean, they hit them with that, and it didn't do any damage to them, supposedly. And they did describe them as having a glow around them, almost like what you would think would be what, Gerald? A force field.
Oh, wow.
Yep. Weird. That's one of the weirdest alien contact stories on record, folks. Definitely. But you got some other ones too, like Barney and Betty Hill. The Interrupted Journey. I have got that book in my library somewhere. Fascinating case history too. A lot of that came out through hypnosis. That was a fascinating story as well. I mean, they actually had close encounters, but it's also an abduction thing too as well. But she actually was able to draw the star map that she saw supposedly on the, and you're talking about people back in the 40s now, folks, 40s and early 50s. She drew a star map, supposedly that she saw on the ship, and it matched the star map in an observatory perfectly.
Really?
And they could never figure out how she was able to do that. And she related every bit of that to hypnosis. The only thing about hypnosis that makes me leery of it, girl, is the fact it is a perfect vehicle to implant false memories as well. That's what you got to watch out for. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there you go. I'm just checking the
chat.
Anyway, yeah. There's some weird encounters out there, folks. A lot of weird encounters. I'm gonna say this, and I've had people ask me this, and I'll get your opinion on it, Gerald. But I've had people ask me, Dennis, do you believe in aliens? Well, here's my answer. Okay. Anything's possible. Absolutely. And I believe in the possibility of possibilities because I believe in the impossible. Okay. I believe it can be something like that. Definitely. I don't believe we were created to be alone in this universe. Absolutely not. But as for some of these things that happen, you got to wonder about, there may be different factors in this and things like that. Some of these encounters, I do believe this, like the sheriff said of the Hopkinsville case. I believe they see something. Definitely, they are seeing or encountering something. But just what it is, I can't tell you 100% for sure what it is. Uh, Unless I can counter it myself, I can come back with a better report for you. But that's my hypothesis. That's my take on it. That these people are experiencing something. Definitely. And it's been my experience over the years, Gerald, that when you interview people about paranormal stuff, whether it's Bigfoot or whatever it may be, you can tell when somebody is very genuine about these things many
Right.
times. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's what I go by. If I see that signs of genuine relation of what happened, that makes me go to attention on it. Definitely. I definitely focus more on that because I've learned the signs over the years of people that lie to you, okay, and when they're not being upfront with you sometimes, and sometimes they're just embarrassed, okay, they don't want to relate it. They'll say, "Oh, you're gonna think I'm crazy," and I always tell them, "Girl, I'm the last person that'll ever think you're crazy," okay, but uh, I can understand that you got human emotion going on in this. But when somebody comes up to you, Gerald, and you see they're visibly upset and they say they've encountered something like this, it's kind of hard to overlook that. You know, something happened definitely.
Right.
I mean, I've been in that my own situation, having seen my own. I saw a UFO one night, and I went and told my uncle about it. I was telling him what I saw and all that. He said, "Well, I don't know what you saw, but I know you saw something." He could tell how emotional I was about it. So I
Yep.
know you saw something, you know. And he said, I know you're not, you weren't drinking, you don't have a mental problem. I kind of, in other words, what he was saying is, I have to believe what you say, um, in that respect. So you do have to understand that, even though, and here's my only point I'll make on this, even though if it ain't really real, girl, it's real to these people.
Yep. Absolutely.
Hmm. What do you think? What's your spin on them?
Yeah, I mean, like I've always said, I don't, I'm not there. Just like you were talking about the sheriff, I'm not there. I don't know what they saw, what they experienced. Did they see what they're describing exactly how it is, or were they frightened? Were they emotional? Maybe they didn't know how to describe it, so they described it the best way they could. Whatever they saw, we just never know.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you hear that, folks? If you run into an alien tomorrow, Gerald and I want to be the first people to know about it. Okay, call us immediately. We want to know. Absolutely, but yeah, I mean, who knows? I've seen a lot of strange things at Walmart, Gerald. You never know. You never know. But anyway, that's it. That's definitely. I don't know. Like I said, you know, I believe in the possibility of possibilities. Anything's possible. It really is. I saw a triangular thing too overbuilt one night. Yeah, I saw the same thing too. It was not, it was the only thing, people have asked me over the years, what did you see? I said, I can't really tell you. I just know that it didn't seem like it belonged on this world. I don't know. But anyway, if we have something like that, we could be like Captain Nemo. We could take over the world, definitely.
Right.
But it is strange. There is a lot of stranger things like that. But we've all seen things in the sky that we can't explain. Turtle has. He films them sometimes on his cameras and stuff. We all see things like that, and there are things I think definitely. I think a lot of it could also be spiritual. I've thrown the hypothesis out there that let me tell you something. If you're in a vehicle that does a 180-degree turn going 10, 15,000 miles an hour, you're not a human being, okay? You ain't going to take it. You're going to be liquid in that thing, okay? There's just no way you're going to live through that, okay? But what if the ship and you are spiritual energy and not physical?
Oh,
You could do it. You could do that and survive. You know what I'm saying?
yep.
So maybe the things that we're seeing, some of this stuff that we see in the sky and in night, and all these lights, these probe-looking things that we see, these orbs, people call them. What if, you know, they're not what we think they are? There's something else that are sort of like a spiritual quality to them, or another dimensional type quality to them, and they're not like what we're existing in the physical realm. What if that's a possibility? To me, that's a very vital possibility. What that is,
Right.
Makes more
Absolutely.
sense. Makes perfect sense. Gerald, if you start from Alpha Centauri tomorrow, you're not going to be here for a long, long time. I don't care how fast you go. If you go the speed of light, it's going to take you years. Okay. That's not the way to travel, folks. That just does not make sense. Don't tell me any kind of a highly advanced civilization is going to do that. That's just stupid. That goes in with my favorite John Wayne expression. Life is hard. It's harder when you're stupid. Space travel would be harder that way, folks. That's stupid. Okay. That's not the way to do it. You would travel interdimensionally, right, Drew? You got to. Yeah. You would be in space.
Teleportation, something that would instantly get you there.
Mm-hmm. You would be in space and time, Blue Eyed. Absolutely. You would have to. But that's very much like the example I told before, Gerald. Like, look, let's say me and Gerald live. Okay, we're in downtown Chicago. Okay. And me and him both are living in two different apartment complexes that are 10 stories tall. Okay. And Gerald's in one, I'm in the other. And our living rooms are separated by 3 feet of space between these two buildings. Okay. In order for me to go see Gerald, I have to go down 10 stories in an elevator, walk half a block over to his building, go up 10 stories, knock on his door, and he lets me in where I just started 3 feet away. That's not the way to travel. The way to travel would be for me to walk through that wall and into his living room. That's the way to do it. Makes perfect sense. Yeah. But that leaves a question, Gerald. I'm going to ask you what you think about this. If you can do that, why do you need a ship?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Well, I think one reason is to protect you through that space and time warp, okay? You would have to have some kind of thing maybe that would protect you or put a unified field on you inside of that craft so that you would not be affected by passing through space and time that way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So what you're talking about is a jump ship. It's made to just jump through time and space. Okay. It's not made to go, cruising around the galaxy. It's not an intergalactic thing. It is a space jumper. That's what it is.
Wow.
Okay, that would explain the ship.
Right.
That's why you need a ship. Okay, that would be one explanation. There may be other ones too, but that would be one. Okay, also, you would need something that would also take you planetary as well. Whatever planet you're going to, whether it's the moon or Mars or wherever, you got to have somewhere to get away to get around the planet. You don't bend time and space on that planet, probably. You could teleport around it. But if you're exploring and you're doing stuff, it makes more sense to have a ship to do that. See what I'm saying?
Right. And more than one crew member.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So the same ship that you jump through time and space with could be used for that as well. I mean, that would be the same purposes for it. So that makes perfect sense. But now one more question remains, Gerald. I'm going to see what you think about it. I got another question I'm just full of questions tonight, okay? So don't shoot me, okay? What do you think about this? What if you got the ship and all this stuff, and you can teleport too? Okay, what if you can do that? But what if you can also move interdimensionally with that ship as well? See what I'm saying? It's not just through space and time, but interdimensionally as well. So that ship could be pure energy to a certain extent, and then transform into the physical thing, okay? From one dimension to another. And I have actually seen with my own eyes spiritual things do that. Come from that spiritual dimension and into the physical dimension and become physical to a certain extent, okay? I think that could be a thing of space travel as well. I mean, that would weigh you. But here's one more thing. How can you explain the different types of ships?
Right.
They see different ones. You got flying saucers, you got cigar shaped, you got the different ones. Back in the 1800s, by the way, Gerald, it was airships, okay? How's that? How do you explain that?
I can't.
The only way I can do that, Gerald, the different ships would be that they're not a uniform military. They are sort of a society that is innovative and builds its own things, okay? So maybe this group here builds a different ship than the other group does. It does the same thing, but it just looks different. They may have reasons for that too that we don't know. But I'm just saying that's the possibility and that's why people have asked me over the years, Dennis, why are there so many dadgum different ships out there? I said maybe that's the reason.
Yeah.
They're not all they're not all in a military type context.
Just like our space shuttle.
If they do have a military, Gerald, it wouldn't be like our military. See what I'm saying? It wouldn't be uniform like that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just like when we had our space shuttle, if Japan made one, theirs wouldn't look like ours, Russia's wouldn't look like ours, and they wouldn't look like each other's.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just like Elon Musk's rocket doesn't look anything like the 70s and 60s rockets.
Well, the perfect ship, Blue-Eyed Bandit, the perfect ship, girl, would be a biological ship, okay? And I'll tell you why. Because when you get in that ship, you're not just flying or using it, you become that ship. So if that ship is already some type of weird spiritual pure energy, when you get in that ship, so also you must become that pure energy. So the ship assimilates you, or you assimilate the ship, whichever the way it may be with that.
Right.
You become one with the ship. That's the perfect way to travel. Think about it. That would, whatever the ship looks like, doesn't really matter. What he does matters most of all, not what he looks like.
Yeah. It could be a square box as long as they can go dimensional from one place to another.
There you go. I mean, it doesn't matter what it looks like. But what he does,
could be a telephone booth.
That's the only way you can explain this extreme speed that, the Air Force talks about these things taking these turns and all that. You would not live through anything like it. Look, I'm going to tell you something, Gerald. You and me are in a car tonight, and we're going 150 mile an hour down the road, and that car immediately stops or turns. You and I are not going to do that. We're going to keep going at 150 miles an hour, okay? That's just the way things work in this universe, okay? Now, if that does happen, we're going to be hurt pretty badly because we're going to be like a rock in a can in that thing,
right.
Okay? We're not going to be good, But if we are one with the ship and we are pure energy of some sort, it's not going to matter one whit to us how fast and how much we turn with that thing, because we're going to make it. I mean, we're going to still remain the same. So listen to what I'm about to say. So space and time, therefore, has no hold on us. Got me?
Yep.
That's it's interesting stuff. Is all that. So that's the alien. I call that the alien equation. Okay, that's exactly what you got to look at when you look at this stuff. That's just some of them. Now I'm not saying I know all. I don't have all the answers. I'm just this. This is just me knocking it around a little bit there, But to me, that makes a lot of sense when you look at things that way. And that's what my aliens would have to do. How about your aliens, Gerald?
Yeah, I don't know if there is a perfect alien because everybody describes them so differently. Maybe some aliens are able to breathe our air. Maybe some aliens have to use respirators. I mean, we see stuff like that all the time in different descriptions that like they have spacesuits on and kind of like what our astronauts would have. Well, that's not really an alien I would picture. I would think they would be able to come here and assimilate to our environment.
And another thing, we talked about earlier, when they get where their destination is or whatever they're doing, they can go dimensionally shift from energy to spiritual energy. I like to call it spiritual energy. They could shift from that into the physical realm. They could look whatever they wanted to look like. Or they could look like their original self, for that matter. I mean, that may be what they really originally look like. But that's what I'm saying. Once they assume physical form, they may assume their true natural form. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's another possibility too. Yeah, and that's why you got insectoids and lyrians and all these different things. That if they go from that. But here's the thing about that. To me, if you can harness space and time, shapeshifting wouldn't be nothing for you. Okay, that would be par for the course, definitely.
Yep.
If we could ever master space and time, Gerald, the universe will be our pickle jar.
Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just like we've heard and seen in movies, and maybe it's real, where the alien can put like a bubble or a force field around you where the air is perfect for them to breathe, and they could adjust it so it's perfect for humans to breathe. So if they take you to another galaxy or another planet, they could literally put you in an environment you could survive. Whether that environment's made for you, that's another question. But they could assimilate it for you.
Oh yeah, that's good. That's good too. Yeah, you could have a force field would enable you to survive different environments under different circumstances. You could walk under the sea for that matter if you had a force field. It's just like being in a suit or something, that's
Right.
going to protect you. And like we talked about earlier with the spiritual energy and all that, the force field could do you the same way. It could protect you. And there's been a lot of movies. I know you know this, Gerald. There's the Krypton Huntress has joined the chat. Hello, dear.
Hi, Jessica.
The thing about it is, we see movies like this where they get the alien out and he's actually in a suit. Remember that?
Yeah.
He's actually in a suit. He's what we call exoskeleton. And there are insects that are like that. They have an exoskeleton. A perfect example of that is a crab. Okay, crabs have an exoskeleton. Aliens could have something like that too. And
right.
That's a possibility as well.
And if you have an exoskeleton, you could also could be invaded. So just like some of the insects where a parasite comes in, even though that insect is dead, they can still maneuver and make that insect move and crawl and do whatever they want it to.
Oh yeah. And if they had a force field like that, that would also help them in space travel. I mean, in the time warp stuff, it would be also protection for them. So it makes perfect sense. Yeah, I agree with you. They would have to have that kind of technology to time and space jump like that. Definitely. Makes perfect sense. If you're dealing with a higher, civilization, they're gonna have stuff like that. And just like once upon a time that those Europeans we talked about when they first landed on the shores of this continent, they probably looked like magic people to them. They had things they never had seen before, like a gun or fire, a match. They didn't know what that was. We would look like gods to them. Think about it, okay?
Right.
We would
Yep.
have looked at that to them. So those kind of people, that the aliens we meet, would definitely put the fear of God in his product. It would scare us pretty good if they were doing some weird stuff. I like to have that ray they can shoot you with and makes you disintegrate. That's what I want. But
Oh,
anyway, yeah, that would be neat. Um, but I think definitely they would be able to not only change your perception of reality, shapeshift, but they could definitely change their own reality too. If they can change your reality, they could change theirs.
right. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think space and time in our minds to figure out who we are and where we are to fit into all this. Well, I think we're just sort of like one of the little clogs in the clock. One of the little cogs in the clock that moves and it's a little gear. We're probably just one of those little tiny gears. Some other civilizations are bigger gears than we are. That's just the way it works. We're still, I think, all part of a fabric of creation, no matter where you go, what you're doing there. And to me, that makes perfect sense. Just like the world around us, look at the ants on the ground and the bugs that crawl around, the spiders and all that. And, I had a woman tell me, "Oh, I hate spiders. I'm scared of spiders." But spiders look good to other spiders. Okay, so there you go. But there you go. I mean, but everything has its little own place to be. That's the fabric of creation itself. Makes perfect sense. Things are created to be that way, to be a part of all of creation, to be a part of the real reality. And that's why I say we have to be very careful around things or objects or practices or whatever that screws around with our reality. That's not a good thing, folks. I don't care what you're doing or what purpose you're doing it for, whatever. It still ain't good to do that. That is a bad thing to do to people. Don't screw up your neighbor's reality, okay? Don't go out and hang your laundry on his fence or something. Don't screw around with his reality. That's not good. And if something like that shows up on our world, screwing around with our reality, we need to be very cautious with how we deal with this thing. It'd be like that movie V all over. You remember V, Gerald? Remember V?
Yep, I remember V.
The visitors we're your friends. Yeah, sure.
That's right.
Yeah, they're here to eat you. But anyway, we need to be very careful. But I don't remember the words. I think it was what's his name, Clark, very famous writer. He said the thought that we might be alone scares me just as much as the thought that we may not be alone.
Oh, Arthur C. Clarke.
yeah, I see. And that makes sense too. Yeah, and I've heard a lot of scientists say you might want to meet aliens, but maybe it might be the best that we never meet them. It might not come out as good as you think so. And if they are highly advanced, if they can harness space and time, I don't think we need to mess around with these guys, okay? Because if they can do that, they could certainly take over this planet real quick. We would not stand a chance against them, Gerald. That's it.
That's the only thing. That's the only thing I don't understand. If they're so technically advanced and have all this great equipment, electronics, whatever, why can't they create their own food or create their own minerals and gold? And why do they have to come back here and eat us in all the movies and steal our gold and abduct us? Can't they generate that and do it themselves if they have all that technology and know-how?
Well, this is what I think about aliens, okay? And I do believe that there are alien species out there, folks. Absolutely, I believe in that. I don't know how many of them are on this planet, okay? I don't know. I don't work for the Census Bureau, okay? But let me say this. If we ever do truly, as a people, encounter aliens, they may be our greatest hope or our worst nightmare. So we got to remember that too, as well. And should we stick out the hand of friendship? They don't probably know what shaking hands is, but anyway, should we do that, or should we run for the hills, and get ready for the, War of the Worlds kind of thing going on? But hopefully, it will be like the ending of the War of the Worlds, Gerald. That when the Martians reduced us to nothing and conquered this planet, and then this ship set down, and the doors opened, and every one of them died because they were killed by the smallest little thing God ever put on this planet, germs. Maybe we have somebody watching over us. I hope so. Well, this has been a very interesting discussion tonight.
Yeah.
Very alien. Very alien-like there, Gerald. You got any final thoughts on all this?
Well, just like you were talking about, different aliens can be acting different ways. Hopefully we get a Superman show up, and that's going to help us out and rescue the world and make us a better place. But at the same time, keep an eye out for the Blob to come through the movie theater and terrorize everybody. You never know what you're going to get.
Yeah. Yeah, I forgot about Superman. Yeah, Superman, if he were to turn bad, and he has turned bad a couple of times, some movies, we might have a big problem. Absolutely. The good thing is, that's what I remember seeing in one of the Superman movies, where the guy says at the end of the movie, "Yes, that's Superman. Thank God he's on our side." So definitely, we would want that, definitely. But I think Superman lied just because we were adopted. Okay, but anyway, we definitely hope that if we ever meet an alien, he's kind of moralistic like Superman. He's a good guy. Okay, absolutely. I hope the one I meet is anyway. I'll put it that way. If I ever meet one, I tell you what, I think I shook hands with one time, but that's another story for another time. But anyway, who knows what's out there, folks? But we got to be careful. Absolutely. Descendants of Adam are a very special species. Well, I think we sometimes look at ourselves as being special, but are we really special? We're really, really that special, you know? We think we are, but that just might be arrogance on our part, okay? You never know. Who knows what else is? I believe. Let me tell you this, I'll leave you with this one question tonight. And God of all his wisdom made us. And he made this great, vast, almost endless universe for a reason. Okay? And I don't think it's sitting out there empty with anything in it. I don't think he made stuff like that. I think it is definitely teeming with all forms of things that we can't even, like I said earlier in the program, beyond human imagination. We don't know, but maybe that's part of the thing that we got waiting for us when we do. As the good book says, one day all things will be made known to you. You will see things for what they truly are. And I think that, to me, is part of it. That's the great mystery of the universe that's waiting out there for us. And I think we may have been made and designed for that. Absolutely.
Right.
I think that's part of our fate, our destiny. One day it will be. But I think Earth, we talk about Earth being an experimental petri dish. I don't think it is. I think Earth is one great big math test. And we need to pass it, folks. I think that's definitely what we need to think about. But anyway, I appreciate you all being here tonight. And it's been a great show. I think we turned those aliens loose now, Daryl. And I'll let them get back to whatever it is they're doing out there. But you want to tell everybody what you got planned, your plans for the future might be?
Don't really know what the future holds, but as far as Wednesday night, the Night Out Lounge will be on at 10 p.m. Central, and we'll just hang out with chat and talk about who knows whatever comes up. Usually pizza or food, something. Sometimes aliens, sometimes cryptids. But then Sunday we'll have another guest on for the Piercing the Veil show at 6 p.m. Central. And as we get closer to changing our time. We will be probably adjusting that from 6 p.m. to a different time so we're able to get our animals in and out safely at night. So we'll probably be adjusting our time instead of 6 p.m. coming up here soon.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you got to start thinking about winterizing, right?
Yep. It's going to be busy.
We're getting a little taste of fall now. It feels good, though. It's my favorite time of the year. Absolutely.
It was in the low to mid 70s today. It was nice.
Yep. Absolutely, yeah. Well, I got a show coming up Wednesday night. Wednesday night, I'm going to be talking about flying super soldiers and Mothman and flying aliens. So we're going to have some more aliens Wednesday night, definitely. And we're going to be looking at that and Terror from the Skies, okay, on Wednesday night, 9 o'clock p.m. on Hunting the Shadows. And then we will have our usual stuff on Paranormal Point of View Friday night at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I will probably be doing a show next Monday night before this show with Danielle Diva Borzon on her show. I will try to get the links up for that, definitely. So go check out Hunting the Shadows YouTube podcast channel and agency. We're an agency now, folks. Okay, we're hiring. Okay. Anyway, check it out when you get a chance, and we'll see what links we put on there. But oh yeah, don't forget Gerald's store. Yeah, we need to start thinking about Christmas shopping here, folks. Okay, and
yeah. Fall and winter's coming up. We've had a couple of people order already, and the hoodies are super thick, nice, soft, and warm, and so are the long sleeve shirts, and the sweatshirts are really nice, heavy duty. So they'll keep you warm, and a few people are starting to buy those fall and winter items.
It's never too early to start that Christmas shopping. Absolutely. Want to nip in the bud as quick as you can. And before the store sells out, right, Gerald?
That's right.
Yeah. Well, thank you there, Overbuilt. I appreciate it. And another trip around the sun. Absolutely. But appreciate that. Yeah. And yeah, check out that Midwest Night Watchers merchandise, folks, for all your bad land needs and good lands too. Matter of fact, yeah. Absolutely. Well, we appreciate you all being here tonight. Appreciate your support so much, and you're always a valuable asset to us. Absolutely, we appreciate you very much for being here and for showing support, and not bailing on us. Definitely, it's good to know you got our back here, and we appreciate that absolutely. And we'll invite you to our shows in the next round. Also, who knows what we'll come up with next week, Gerald? It may be. I don't know. It won't be aliens, but it'll be something else. Who knows? But we'll see what happens, folks. So tune in, same time, same channel, okay, and see what happens next. There's the mystery right there for you. But anyway, we appreciate all of you so much. It's been a great show, great fun show. We went an hour and a half overall, getting close to 2 hours, Gerald. Those aliens really strung us out tonight. Yes, sir. But anyway, somebody says they don't like, Jason says you don't like baggy sweatshirts or hoodie sweatshirts. Well, I think Gerald's probably got him a chart on there and tells you what kind of sizes you got.
If you buy them the right size, they're not baggy.
There you go. Hoodies, yeah. I like my hoodie. Yes. It turns me in every time I put it on. Turns me into a ninja, but that's another story. Okay? Oh. Anyway, yeah. You're not able to see me flitting through the shadows one night with my saber.
Could have a special. You get throwing stars and with every hoodie you buy.
Stars of people, yeah. Better watch out. But anyway, I appreciate you all so much for being here. We have fun as always, and so you take care of yourselves out there, and be careful. Keep an eye on your six. Keep your head on a swivel and watch out for those aliens, okay? And If you do see any, I won't call ISIS for the other kind of aliens. Okay. But anyway, you might want to watch out for those aliens, definitely, folks. So take care out there, and we appreciate you all so much. Come back and see us again, and until then, Godspeed. And Gerald and I both will definitely see you in the shadows. Good
Good night,
night.
everybody.